Now let's quickly jump in and talk about what I like about this movie. So, for one thing, the opening. This is not something I've really seen. There's some like opening credits that are really cool and I kind of like them, but this, I again, I will have to really think it over. But this might be the best opening credit ever because I will have to talk about this in later videos in my educational topic on how to make a great opening credits because this movie is a really, really good opening credits, especially for a sequel because without saying a word, they did a perfect job with show, don't tell. They literally, the opening credit is like motion capture pictures going by of the first movie. You just see every important scene from the beginning to the end, and it does a really good job of it. It looks beautiful, but it's also for those who haven't seen the movie, haven't seen the first one in a while or something like that. They can watch that opening credits. Not just are they getting the names of the people who worked on this movie, but they're also getting a recap of what happened in the first movie. So you're like, okay, this is what happened in the first movie, guys. Now let's go into the second one. I'm gonna have to give that to them. That is a very ingenious thing that they did there because it really like recapped it. Wow, like and the music was beautiful. The music. This is something I didn't really. This is something I didn't really talk about in the first one, but the music in these movies are amazing. The music is incredible. It draws you in. It makes you feel like, wow, this is incredible. Just like with Aw, the music in this movie is awesome. It's I'm gonna have to listen to the soundtrack because the soundtrack is just incredible. It's a very beautiful, beautiful music. There's a lot of things that the Tollywood side of movies have over Hollywood when it comes to like music, action, something like that. So yeah, so this opening credits, that was something I hadn't thought about before, and it's could always just I always just thought, hey, maybe doing less with the opening credits is a good idea because people just at that point the people just want to watch the movie. But seeing that, I'm like, no, you need to if you make good opening credits, it could pull people more into the movie. I know there are other opening credits in older movies that I really like to watch because they are awesome. They just like the music is great, and this is one of them. I know all actually has the opening is pretty good. It's not visually as cool as this one, but I do like the music in the opening. A lot of good opening credits have like a good music going with it, and that's what makes them good. But this one had great music, and visually they had like some very creative ways of recapping the first movie while doing it. Other things about this movie that's like the visually this movie is like stunning. This movie is a breathtaking. It really like draws you in and what you want to see more after seeing this movie because that's something that another thing that I might have to make a video someday of this just look a list of everything that Tollywood, Bollywood studios like that do better than Hollywood. But for right now, I'll say this: music wise, I think like Tollywood sometimes do a better job. Sometimes I'm gonna say sometimes because there was some really good soundtracks like Lord of the Rings and stuff like that in and so there's some very talented people, but there's also just I don't know. I'm a big fan of classical music and I'm a big fan of music that just doesn't have words and helps draws you in. I will make whole videos talking about the music of other things and how you can how that music can draw you in and all. But for right now, I'll just say this: most movies, in my mind, the soundtrack is in like Hollywood movies are forgettable. They're kind of just there to unless they have words. A lot of times they just get music. Music, I will think again. I will make whole videos talking about how they do music in movies. The music a lot of times is mainly there to help because what music does, and you're gonna hear this if you watch people if any of you guys are YouTubers and you want to learn more about how to make YouTube videos that's good, one thing you're going to hear about video editing is the hitting the music is a big part because it sets the tone. I know I personally, with these videos, I haven't mastered how to set the tone with the music yet. I hear there's some good programs you can use to get music and all that kind of stuff, but I haven't got into that because I've been busy just put out the video, put some music to it, and like, get the video out. But for right now, I'll say this, that the music is what sets the tone. In a scene, if you put a happy music to a death scene, it's going to get your audience confused because they're going to be like, okay, so how is this supposed to work? Like am I supposed to feel happy or sad? And it's going to hit with their emotions. But if you put a really sad music to it, it's not too sappy sad, it's going to make them feel really, really sad about it. Well, it's even bigger when you put, like, let's just say this character has a theme, and then you make, like, you put it lower down, and you make it into more of a sad sounding of the theme, and then boom, that's going to get hit. It's going to get those tears rolling out for those people, for people who really like that character, because they can recognize what, even if they don't realize it, their brain recognizes the theme of that character, and then in the sad, but with the sadder tune, it makes it sad. That's the thing, is with your soundtrack, it's supposed to help manipulate your viewers' emotions, set the mood for them. But again, yeah, you have to work on being not too sappy about it. And I will say that Tollywood does sometimes some of the songs are a little bit like on the nose. Now this is the English translation of the songs. Like, okay, you're kind of just saying exactly what is happening, but it's also just the English translation. Like what it is in its original language might be more beautiful. It sounds very beautiful, but I don't. Another thing with the visuals is that again is stunning, very beautiful looking, and I want to see more of these type of movies. After seeing and then the first Bahubali movie, and now seeing this one, I'm like, give me more Tollywood. Now Hollywood has this almost grainy type, like they have to make everything dark, and like, Tollywood is still like, let's make it colorful, make it so these movies are enjoyable. Because the fact of the matter is, movies are supposed to be enjoyable. You can make them, have a deep meanings and stuff like that, but if you can't make them enjoyable to watch, there's no point, because that's your job. Your job is to entertain. Another big thing that Tollywood has over Hollywood is that of the action. I said about this in the previous video. I'm not the biggest fan of action, but I love this action. I love the action in this movie. Let's put it this way, right? I was smoking and smiling during the action scenes in this movie because they were so enjoyable to watch. I have never really done that in a Hollywood movie, because Hollywood movies action is kind of just bland. I'm gonna see bulls with their like horns on fire, running in a stampede, and knocking over the enemy. You can see that in this movie. That's the type of movie we're watching. It's so enjoyable. They just allow these crazy things to happen, and some people like to say it's more cartoonish, but I don't really care. It's enjoyable to watch. If you have to make your movie cartoonish to be able to watch, make it cartoonish. Because the fact of the matter is, that's more enjoyable than a bland action scene in a hallway. Well, I like Arrow as a TV show. It's a really good, I enjoy it. It has the problem that the action is not that good, where it's just like dark hallways. And I want there to be scenes in that show where it's just like him just taking down a bunch of thugs, and it's just like, yeah, he's badass. That's the best way to say it, right? But most of the time, it's just like Hollywood is somewhat of an improvement and somewhat not. It's like you can't really have these characters be powerful enough that they can just take down, like, they're just like bam, 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 bam. And hundreds of people are being knocked down, and they're just able to do that, like in these movies, where you see characters just able to fight off like 1,000 people. And it's kind of funny. It's not realistic, but it's kind of funny. And the problem with Hollywood is, I guess one of the biggest things you can, I guess the two biggest things you can say about Hollywood nowadays is, number one, Hollywood is turned into a place where they feel like they have to overly push agendas. And number two, they have to make everything realistic. There's this feeling of, in superhero movies, in everything, you have to make everything realistic. If anything is not realistic, it's stupid. But honestly, if you say it's realistic for this world, right? In the world of Bahubali, these certain characters having like the strength of Heracles or something like that is not that unbelievable. It's just, yeah, that's something that just runs in their family. His dad was able to do it. He's able to do it. It makes sense. They're just super powerful guys that can be overpowered. That's something that I've seen in all these Tollywood movies I've been watching, is that they all have the main character is just like super, super, super strong. And it's awesome, and it's so enjoyable to watch. Like chucking trees at each other and stuff like that. It's enjoyable to watch. But Hollywood has to say like, well, science behind this says that they can do it because of this and all that kind of thing. Honestly, cool. It's kind of cool. But the fact of the matter is, if I want to watch a movie, I don't care as much about all the little details about it. If you say in this world that there are certain characters that are super, super strong, that's cool for me. That's people who want to just watch an enjoyable movie, actually want to see. They just want to see an enjoyable movie. They don't care to hear all the science behind why it's enjoyable. So, in that case, why are we bothering in Hollywood movies to try to say everything must be realistic? Because these people in America and people who are watching these Hollywood movies mainly are now getting to the point where, and even I find myself, there's some YouTube channels that, as I've said before in my own head, there's a couple YouTube channels that even if I was super, super famous, I would still follow. And one of those YouTube channels is Film Theory. I love Film Theory. And they have some great videos out, and even if I ever became famous, I would watch it, and I would be more excited if I ever saw a movie that I was in or a book that I wrote or something like that on that channel, because I would flip out because I was famous enough to be put on Film Theory, because Film Theory is, in my mind, the peak of YouTube channels. I love that channel. That, and there's a couple other channels that I would probably follow even if I was famous. But the point is, even with that channel, we are running into the problem that people in America are now they're like, yes, it's good to take stuff serious sometimes. But the fact of the matter is, in this universe, yes, Film Theory is nice because it tries to put reality logic to these series, but it's they made a video talking about how the Batman has a problem where Batman suit should not be able to bounce off bullets. Well, that's a good thing to bring up and say, hey guys, so this actually doesn't make sense with logic. The fact of the matter is, if in the universe of the Batman, the armor that he's wearing is able to dodge, that's able to have bullets bounce off of it and not harm him, because in that movie that the armor can do that. You have that whole thing. Now, I'm going to say, hey, okay, that makes sense. In this universe, that can do that. But the problem is, with stuff like the Batman and movies like that, is the more realistic you try to make it, people are going to make it more. The fact of the matter is, fantasy is always going to have the problem that it is fantasy. And there's going to have to be fantasy elements. The problem is, if you make fantasy and you're trying to make it more and more realistic, the more realistic you make it, the harder it is to put elements like dragons and elements like that in it. Because people are not going to understand why you can have elements like that in a movie that is kind of realistic. The more realistic you make it, the more you're going to run into the problem of people not being able to believe anything unrealistic. So basically, I'm not saying you need to make it the most outlandish story ever, but if you want to put elements in that defines logic, put them in, and then say, hey, yeah, I know this is not reality, but isn't that fun? Isn't it okay to have fun? That's the fact of the matter is, we as Hollywood needs to stop dealing with the problem with trying to make everything realistic. And Tollywood, and they need to look to Tollywood on how to have fun while making your movies. On the whole thing of action, a lot of people complain about some Hollywood movies where they have slow motion. These Tollywood movies put a high emphasis on slow motion. They have so much slow motion, but I like the slow motion. I see where people are coming from with Jackson Snyder and people like that. Oh, having slow motion and how it's a problem. But I like the slow motion in this one. I like the slow motion. It draws the action better. It just says, guys, we're going to slow down. And then we're going to speed back up again. And it's just like throw a spear and then the spear slowly goes. And then it hits a bunch of people and they kill them. It's epic to watch these slow motion adds to it completely, adds to it perfectly. I love it. One thing at the beginning of this movie that that I started cheering was that it began with something saying that all bulls, oxen, ducks, all those animals are not real animals. They are computer generated. And he's just like, are we gonna do? Is this second part gonna have an R? Is this second part gonna have more of an R thing of throwing tigers at each other though? And yes, they do have a scene again, as I mentioned before, where a bunch of oxen are stampeding, and they all have their horns on fire, and they're like running through the enemy of of our heroes, and just killing them all. And it's absolutely epic. And you have this one moment where the hero drags an oxen by his fiery horn back onto the track with all the rest of the oxen, and it's absolutely hilarious. And it's like that would define logic completely, but in this movie, you believe that it's totally okay if that happens because it's Bahubali. Of course, Bahubali can grab an oxen by a fiery horn and pull him back onto the track. Of course, he can do that. Now I'm going to get into some things I dislike about Bahubali. For example, as I mentioned before in the first part of this series, the first video on this topic of Bahubali, I mentioned how Tollywood it's more of a baby movie industry versus Hollywood. Based on that, I mean, some changes, some things that Hollywood has moved on from, Tollywood has not yet. So it makes it so Tollywood they make some mistakes, and one of those mistakes that they made in this movie is with the whole scene that I talked about with the oxen. It's in a battle that comes out of nowhere. Who are these? Like, in a Hollywood movie, I would have been like, okay, guys, this is a problem. In this Tollywood movie, the action was so much fun that I didn't care, but I would say that I was thinking about it. I'm like, wait a second, who are these? Who are these villains? Who is this army that just randomly attacked them? It makes no sense. They just come out of nowhere, and then they disappear again. It's just, they attack. The only reason why they had that army just randomly appear and attack them is for the reason so that the person that Bahubali could see him as a hero instead of as this bumbling idiot he was trying to pretend to be, so that he wouldn't overly shadow his friend, basically. The person became his friend. I absolutely love that guy. I don't remember his name, but that guy's awesome. He was hilarious, and his bragginess and all, and he became a real hero. And I'm not going to spoil what happens to him in the end, but he's an awesome guy. I liked him. Good job for you, young sir. But the whole thing is that I don't even know who these villains were. They just appeared. It was just this whole army just appeared and started attacking them, and then they got wiped out, and the movie went on. And that's the problem is that Hollywood hasn't moved on from, is that Hollywood has learned that having random action scenes happen randomly, unless it's Star Wars or something like that. I'm not saying that Hollywood has fully moved on yet, but for the most part, they have moved on from the problem of having random action scenes happen just because random action scene was that. It's you haven't had an action scene in a while, so you just randomly have an action scene thrown. They don't have any of that in most Hollywood movies, but this Hollywood movie does, and I don't mind it. I'm just saying that if it was a Hollywood film, I would have been more critical of that. But because it was a Tollywood film that has the action was so much fun to watch, I was just I don't really care. I guess it's coming from someone who doesn't like action. I can see when action is not supposed to be there, and I don't like seeing the action unless it's necessary. And in this movie, I like seeing the action, so I didn't care if it was necessary or not, because the action was fun to watch. The problem I had, this is just a nitpick with Netflix more, but I was watching on Netflix, and I watched the first one, and it was an English translation of it. When I went to look for an English translation on there of the second one, I couldn't find it. So I had to watch it in Hindu, and there was an English subtitle so I could understand what was going on, what was being said, but the language was not English, so I couldn't understand it. So I had to just rely on my reading of what it was saying. So I followed it But I mean, it's nice when a movie is in English with they had parts that weren't in English and the parts that were in English, but that was mainly because they had it, so they went to England. So that's probably why. But in this movie, they only had it in Hindu because the whole movie just took place in India, and so there was no translations into English at all. But I didn't mind it as much. It was more just a problem with Netflix for not having an English translation. There's probably English translations out there made based off of that the first one had an English translation, so they probably have a translation that's in English. But I'm just warning for anyone who wants to watch this and wants to watch it on Netflix, watch a translation. If you are an English speaker, you would have to watch a translation that's not in English. It was enjoyable. It was a fun adventure. It was a step back into the land of Bahubali, and it was so much fun to watch. The characters were awesome. Some of the choices that were made weren't the best, but I mean, it answered the cliffhanger. Honestly, I feel like the reason for why that one character killed that other character based off the cliffhanger was kind of it's not as justified, but it was also like I mean, sadly kind of justified, and it was sad to see how it was an order from the man's own mother and stuff like that, and it was a sad part of the story, and I didn't quite tear up, but I think they did a good job with that scene where it was just like where the guy forgave him even while he was killed. So it was a really sad scene, and the guy had a redemption, and I like that. Solid movie. If you haven't seen it yet, check it out. It's really fun to watch. The action is awesome. The visuals are awesome. The opening of this movie is awesome. The music is awesome. Everything about this movie is like if you have time to watch a 3 hour movie and you have to make a decision between a Hollywood movie or a Tollywood movie, I would pick this Tollywood movie more. Even that I might say that I would still prefer Lord of the Rings or Troy over this, but that's just because that's coming from a really big fan of Tolkien and a big fan of the Iliad, that I just love those stories so much. The story of this is good, but it's not like my favorite story. Mainly, what's so fun about this movie is just just the visuals and all, and how well it's put together. It's a well put together movie. I really like it. Tell me, have you guys watched this movie? Do you like it? A little like announcement, guys. This is like I'm really excited about this week. Not just are we reviewing the conclusion to Bahubali, but we're also concluding the first key on all of our educational content for filmmaking. Wow, I will be talking about in a couple weeks some other topics on it, intros like your music opening versus non-musical openings in your movies, the difference between a TV opening versus a movie opening, different stuff like that. I will talk about some stuff like that before we move on to our second key. This week is going to be so much fun. I'm really excited for this week. When I saw that it was this week that it was to be the big conclusion, especially for my educational content. I'm so excited for this week because this is one of the biggest videos I talked about before, that the videos I was most excited for making. One was that video on Troy, and I'm going to make a lot more videos about Troy. And the other video that I'm really excited for is the one that we're talking about this week, and that is the video on what's the difference between the Lord of the Rings versus the Rings of Power for its opening. Why does one work while the other one doesn't work? I'm gonna have it's gonna be so much fun. If you guys haven't yet, please subscribe so you can see that video when it comes out, because that video I've been thinking about for months now, and I'm like every single video I put out, I've been thinking about. We're going to get to that point. We're going to get to that point. Even though I love all the videos I've been putting out, it's always been in the back of my head is just another video until we get to that video, because I'm going to have so much fun talking about the opening of Lord of the Rings and how much I love it, and but also discussing what went wrong with an opening that's almost exactly like the Lord of the Rings, but for somehow it got people bored and it made people like drop off instead of the Lord of the Rings really got people hyped for the movie. So guys, tell me your thoughts below. Have you seen this movie? If you guys haven't yet, again, subscribe. I mentioned this before and I'll mention it again. If if you haven't tried yet, try to get 10 friends to subscribe to this channel. If you can't, get at least 5 of them to subscribe. Because the fact of the matter is, the bigger channel, the bigger we get, the more we can do on this channel. Again, we have 45 people. That's add in 225 new people if everyone managed to get 5 new people to subscribe. If you get 10 new people to subscribe, that's 450 new subscribers. And again, I'm gonna answer 100 of you guys' questions about. It can be about this channel, about me, it can be as personal as you want, as I feel comfortable with answering. But it can't be stuff about my personal information. I'm so excited how this channel's been growing. I cannot wait to be able to put out a video talking about answering you guys' 100 questions and being able to and really allow you guys' thoughts to be heard. I can't wait to do that. And then again, we're going to be reaching 1,000 subscribers, and I have a very special surprise going with that. 10,000, I will be releasing the second channel, all the good stuff. Yeah, I can't wait for that. Hopefully you guys are excited for it too, because I keep thinking about what I could do with those second channels and all, and I'm just I'm not sure which one I would want to start first, and that's why I'm going to leave it up to you guys to be the one to decide. Once we reach 9,000 subscribers, I'm going to put out a poll just saying, hey, which channel do you guys want to see next? Anyways, guys, thank you guys for watching. This has been the Movie Night Review. Peter Whit, signing off.